Stress and anxiety, they play a really, really large part of people's lives. And some people carry so much of it and so consistently that they don't know that they're carrying stress and anxiety. I learned a really, really important lesson in this way. I was traveling, speaking at an event with a buddy of mine named Jason. And Jason started feeling sick. He was nauseous. He eventually lost his balance a few times. Jason's an otherwise healthy guy. I knew Jason at that time to be a healthy guy, but Jason was struggling. I didn't know it, but he was real concerned because he kind of knew what he was struggling with. And when we got back, we were in Portugal. When we got back from this trip, Jason gave me a call and told me he had been diagnosed with cancer, stage 4, serious. And Jason and I we were already pretty close, but we got really, really close as a consequence of his diagnosis and what he was going through. And he said to me, Jason's an entrepreneur. He has created many businesses. He's had tremendous success, but he's also had tremendous stress. And he said, Elliott, I used to be proud of how much stress I can handle. And then he said to me, I want you to be very, very, very careful. I want to caution you, don't just carry a bunch of stress because your body will respond to it. He said, I genuinely believe the cancer was a result of all the stress that I carry. And I thought about that. And I got to be honest with you. I have lived in spaces where I was also proud of how much stress I can handle. And that caused me to revisit my own mindsets and start thinking about my own health in a different way. And this week on the podcast, starting today, I want to talk about how to manage stress and anxiety. So welcome back to the Aha Moments, where every day I share the lessons I've learned in my work as a psychotherapist and in my life to inspire you to live your very best life. Of course, I'm your host, Elliott Connie. Now, we as human beings, we tend to get conditioned to the things all around us. Like if you wake up every day and there is a big, huge field of diamonds on your kitchen counter every single day, then you stop being impressed by diamonds. If you wake up every single day and there's $1 million in your bank account, then you stop being impressed by $1 million. You stop being impacted by $1 million. Those are positive examples, but it's also true in the negative sense. If I wake up every single day and I'm worried about my kids, or I'm worried about money, or I'm worried about business, or I'm worried about how people perceive me, or what I'm worried about, whatever, you're carrying around a massive amount of stress. And here are some ways that you can know that you're dealing with a massive amount of stress and things you should do about it. Number one is stress will often cause a sleep disruption of your normal pattern. So sometimes when people are super duper stressed, they sleep a ton. There's somebody who normally sleeps, 6, 7, 8 hours. They will start sleeping 8, 9, 10 hours. They'll start waking up after a full night of sleep, feeling like they didn't sleep at all. Or the opposite. They stop sleeping. Their mind is racing. They lay in bed worried and worried and worried, and they never really fall into a deep sleep. Another thing that will tell you that you are experiencing massive amounts of stress is if you get to the end of your work week and whatever your norm is, you no longer want to do it. So if you're the kind of person that I love hanging out with my friends, we want to go happy hour and hang out with bars, go out and hang out and see movies, and you've had such a stressful week, the only thing you can think of doing is just crashing out on your couch and watching Netflix all weekend. Perhaps the biggest sign that you're dealing with the kind of stress that means you need help managing it is if you're using chemicals to manage your mood. Now, chemicals, when I say chemicals, I mean 3 things. You're using alcohol to deal with a difficult circumstance. You are using drugs to deal with a difficult circumstance, and I'm including nicotine as a drug. So it's I'm so stressed out, I come home and I have to have a glass of wine to calm myself down. I smoke lots of cigarettes or use really hard drugs, but that's a sign. And I'm also, so drugs and alcohol, and the third one is food. If you're so stressed out, you look for food, you look to food for comfort, you look to food to boost your mood. Those things are really, really unhealthy. And they're a sign that there's something stressful in your life that you need to address. Maybe you have a super stressful job. Maybe your partner is stressing you out. Maybe, who knows, there's some circumstance in your life that is creating an unhealthy amount of stress. You're coping with it in unhealthy ways, and you need to be able to address it. And I'm there. Like, I'm the kind of person who has dealt with stress and coped in all kinds of crazy ways that were not super helpful for me. And once I became aware of it, and certainly the situation happened with my buddy helped me, you become aware, like, okay, I got to do something different. I got to take care of myself in a better way. So hope this helps somebody out there. It's super important and could save your life. The world itself has become an incredibly stress and anxiety producing place. And believe it or not, it wasn't always this way. As a young person, I remember I used to turn on television and, I mean, really, really young, like a kid. Turn on the television, you expect to see cartoons and funny things. It was a thing to relax. Unplugging was not a thing because we were not constantly plugged in. So the world was a safe space. And I mean that emotionally. I mean that, from a nervous system standpoint. The world was just a safe place to be. And these days that's not the case. These days that's not how it is. As a kid, I loved baseball. That was my favorite sport. I was really good at it. And but I didn't like the Boston Red Sox. And growing up in Boston, that was an uncommon thing. And the Boston Red Sox had like their own sports channel called NESN, New England Sports Network. And the Red Sox were on all of the time. And if I didn't want to watch the Red Sox, if I didn't want to know what was happening, I could just avoid it. What I really enjoyed was when the Yankees would play the Red Sox, because back in those days, the Yankees were always beating up on them. And sometimes there was a big game, I would avoid NESN, and I would avoid people telling me what happened with the game. And then when I'd get home, I could watch the recording of it completely blank and not knowing what has happened. But the world has changed, and it's changed in ways that produce anxiety and stress. I'm going to tell you about those changes here now. And I know I'm going to sound like the old dude when I say this, but you got to hear me out. You got to listen to me as a psychotherapist, because I'm telling you, this is why the world has changed, and this is what every single person needs to do in order to manage the way the world has changed. And what has changed in the world is the development of cell phones and social media. Now look, I am not the kind of person that is going to bash social media or cell phones. I understand things change. I understand technology advances the world forward. And I understand that in some ways we benefit from these things. Like, I understand all of that. But let me tell you the very specific reason that these things have created anxiety. Well, I just told you, back in my younger days, if I knew the Yankees were playing the Red Sox, but maybe I had my own game, maybe I had practice, maybe I had a school event, whatever, and I knew I couldn't sit and watch the game live, I could literally say to my friends, if you guys know what happened in the game, don't tell me. I could call my mom and say, hey mom, when I come home, don't tell me if you know anything about that happened with the game. And I could go through my entire day not knowing what happened. And then when I got home, I could sit and watch the recording totally blank and experience that game as if I were watching it live, because I had no idea what had happened. Now you fast forward to 2025, where we now live. And just today, there was a football game, an NFL game, that I was not watching. I was not paying attention to this game at all. And I was going through my day. Multiple apps on my phone were updating me on the score of this game. I couldn't avoid that knowledge if I tried. Now, that's just using sports as an example, but there are oftentimes current events that happen that you cannot avoid. This is the first time in human history that news chases the receiver of the news. Because when I was growing up, if you wanted to find information, you had to go do something to get that information. But these days, that's not the case. About a month ago, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I did not look for that information. I'll never forget the moment. I was literally sitting in a meeting with my staff, and we were going over the things we normally do in our weekly staff meeting, and then all of our phones started blowing up. CNN and whatever apps are on your phone, they all started blowing up. Charlie Kirk shot. The videos, because it was captured live on video, and the videos of him being shot were everywhere. I didn't look for that. And more importantly, I couldn't avoid it if I wanted to. And those are the kind of things that cause stress and anxiety. The human brain is not designed to observe trauma. There's that famous story that happened in Vietnam where a bunch of nuns watched soldiers kill a bunch of children and women, and multiple nuns who observed that event went blind. Why did that happen? It's a psychosomatic response because the human brain is not designed to observe and take in trauma to the degrees that we're currently observing and taking in trauma. You're literally not designed to do it. But because of the way the world is now, you now can't avoid it. I don't want to see a video of a man murdered. I don't want to see a video of a life being taken. And you see it all the time now. I can list several people that were their lives were taken on camera. Eric Gardner, Charlie Kirk, as I just mentioned, George Floyd. The list goes on and on and on. How many people watching this have seen body cam footage of a police officer taking someone's life? It's a very consistent thing. And our human brains are just not designed to take in trauma. And what happens? Anxiety and depression happens. What happens? Stress goes up. What happens? Your nervous system responds to the constant triggers that we've been inundated with that we cannot avoid. So I don't want to be that old guy that's like, I hate Instagram, right? I'm not that guy, but I am saying sometimes it's really important for your nervous system that you turn off the device so that the notifications are not chasing you, letting you know that there are traumatic things happening in the world. I promise you, if you create a system or routine, turn off your phone for an hour a day. Turn off your phone, because actually we're so dependent upon these devices, and we're so used to these notifications and these triggers that actually when you turn off the phone, the first thing you experience is your anxiety goes up. I wonder if somebody's trying to reach me and they can't get a hold of me because I turned my phone off. Keep your phone off for long enough that settles down. Literally an hour a day. Literally a few hours a week. Doesn't matter. But create a routine where your device is off and you're giving your nervous system a break. Let me tell you a quick story about an interaction I had with a client at the very, very beginning of my career that completely changed the way I thought about doing the job of psychotherapy. At this time, I was working for an agency and we were doing something called multi-systemic therapy. Now, I'm not going to tell you the whole spiel about what multi-systemic therapy is. We called it MST. So what you did with MST is the therapist would go to the client's home. It's an in-home therapy delivery model. And the therapist would go to the client's home and talk to the clients. And then they would talk to them about whatever problems they're having, whatever struggles they're dealing with, whatever, things are going on in their lives. And then would go back and meet with the team, and the team would help you come up with an intervention. And then you go back to the client's home like literally the next day. And there's one client I was working with, they were struggling with anxiety. And in their struggle with anxiety, my job was to give them things that they could do. And I noticed that when someone is struggling with anxiety, they don't remember what you tell them to do, like all these breathing techniques, and like when you're struggling with anxiety, count backwards from 100 down to 0, like all these things. And when people are super anxious in the moment, they don't do it because they don't remember to do it because it's just not on their mind. So I was thinking today, like, what is something? And anyway, so that changed how I did therapy because I realized that the goal is really to help people be at their best more frequently instead of struggling with the anxiety, and instead of figuring out how to solve the problem, basically, how do I help myself be at my best more frequently? But it still begs the question, when people do get anxious, what are some things that people can actually do and can actually remember when they are stressed? And I'm going to tell you a couple of them that I don't think are complicated, a couple of things that I think a person can actually do to return to that state of calm. So then I'm going to tell you 3. And again, these are not the kind of things that when you're super anxious, it won't be on your mind, you won't do it. Like, they're the kind of things that I think you could actually do. Thing number 1, find yourself around someone that you find calming. So when you're really amped up and your nervous system is at its highest, there are people that will trigger us to get even more amped, and there are people that are really calm and can help us settle. So when you're really, really in that difficult place, reach out to someone that has a calming effect on you. Maybe that's your spouse, best friend, maybe it's your grandmother, uncle, whatever it is. Reach out to somebody that has a calming effect on you. Number 2, go outside and go for a walk. Get away from the triggering incident, get away from the thing that is bringing you angst, and go outside and go for a walk. Don't worry about the problem. Don't worry about whatever's making you anxious. Don't think about what's triggering you. Just get outside and get some oxygen. There's actually a lot of research that says when you deep breathe, it has a calming effect on things like anxiety and depression. There's just something about pure energy, pure oxygen and fresh oxygen that really helps you heal. So get outside and get some fresh air. The third thing I would say is think about the hobbies that you really enjoy. And I mean those hobbies that you've enjoyed doing since you were a kid. Like maybe you like to draw, or maybe you like to play video games, or maybe you like to read. And engage in a hobby that has been meaningful to you for a very, very long time. If you can remember any one of these three things, when you find yourself really anxious, really worried something has triggered you, go get outside, get some fresh air. I do that very often, actually. I try to go outside and get some fresh air every single day. Even though I work right here from home, so most days I'm not mandated to leave my house, but I go outside and get a walk every single day. Number 2, reach out to that calming person. And I'm fortunate enough, I have a couple of people that are very calming, very stable forces in my life. So go surround yourself with those calming, stable forces in your life. And thing number 3, engage in a hobby. And my hobby is I play video games. I love them. I've loved them since I was a kid. I play sports video games, and they make me calm, and they make me relax. They take my mind off of the things that stress me out. They take my mind off the things that cause me worry, and it helped me be a better version of me. So engage in those things. I used to struggle with anxiety pretty severely. I remember one day I was in middle school. My living room had a big bay window that looked out the front, and I'd gotten in some trouble. I don't remember what the trouble was, and I was a kind of a mischievous kid, but not a bad kid. I didn't do crime. I didn't get into a lot of fights, or I didn't sell drugs at school and anything like that. But I would not turn in my homework sometimes, be late for class, get detention for talking, that kind of thing. And I'd gotten in some trouble, and the school had called my dad and wanted to have a meeting with him. I remember being at home knowing that in that exact moment, my father was at school talking to my teachers. And I remember just being completely riddled with anxiety. What are they telling him? How's he going to respond when he gets home? I pretty much knew, but you're just like, how's he going to respond when he gets home? How am I going to get through the evening knowing how bad it was going to be? I was really terrified. And I remember looking out that bay window, just a pit in my stomach, really, really anxious and filled with fear and filled with dread for what I knew would be the evening to come. That was a common experience in my childhood. I had so much fear, and fear leads to anxiety, and there was just so much fear and uncertainty surrounding me in my life. It was just a very common thing. But I don't live that way now. There was a shift as I grew older and I matured. I want to talk to you about that shift. I want to share with you what that shift was in the hopes that I can inspire somebody out there that struggles with anxiety. I want to help you understand that just because anxiety is a part of your life now doesn't mean it always has to be. I told you what it was like growing up and how I had so much fear and anxiety. But when I was in college, that anxiety turned into confidence. And what happened was I had a professor. I was really, really struggling. I had so much fear. I'm going to fail this test. I'm going to fail this thing. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. It was just a perpetual thought that quite honestly was ruining my life. The circumstances you find yourself in, those can be bad, but the response you have, the internal response you have to those circumstances can be significantly worse. And I was really, really struggling. It was bad. It was really trying. And I had a professor who told me I was a really good writer. It's a super long story. I've shared it before in this podcast, but she told me I was a really good writer. She told me I was a really good student and I had a bright future. And I was so puzzled and confused by why would she say that? Most people hadn't said such things to me, but here this woman is saying it. And she knew a little bit about my background just because she was my professor and she was my advisor, meaning she was the professor I was closest with because we talked often about my agenda for graduating. And she said, Elliott, you need to start wondering how have you gotten through all the things you got through and made it onto a college campus and you're performing on par with other students. And that was the very first time I looked at my story as an asset. That was the very first time I looked at my story as a sign of strength, meaning it wasn't fun, it wasn't awesome, it was really hard, but I got through it. And I got through it eligible and able to go to college. And I was in college performing just as all of the other students who hadn't been what I'd been through. And all of a sudden, the fear went away because I started realizing, like, that must mean I'm strong and capable and resilient. And when I started viewing myself as calm and capable and resilient, I stopped viewing myself as someone who should fear the future because I started thinking I can handle whatever's coming. And then the anxiety went away. So if you're someone out there who's struggling with anxiety, I want you to think, what have I been through? And what does it say about me that I've been through it and gotten through it? Now, you might be bruised and battered and scarred, but you did get through it. I certainly was bruised and battered and scarred. I was not perfect, but I did get through it. And I find myself at 19 years old at the time I'm having this conversation with this professor on a college campus. And I was like, all right, maybe I can go from here. And that thought took away my anxiety. Now, from that moment, I've had anxious moments, because who hasn't? I've had some nerves, but I've never really struggled with anxiety again. And that's the gift I hope I'm giving to you today. I think back to that younger Elliott that was really, really struggling with anxiety. And I think about all the things that happened in my life and how anxious I was. Like, I used to be so scared to come home. And I'm talking like elementary school. You know, I lived in a different time. I'm from the 1900s. So I remember being in elementary school, walking home from school, and just dreading what was waiting for me at home. Like, my dad was going to be upset. I was going to have to figure out how to do my homework in a way that didn't trigger my dad to get even more upset. My dad and brother were often in struggle, so I was going to have to deal with that. And that was just such a huge part of my life. Relief and joy and peace were just not common experiences. I wish they were, but they just weren't. They were not common experiences to me. They were not things that I experienced on a regular daily basis. And I think back, like, what do I wish someone had said to me? I had a moment, I talked about it in yesterday's episode, like I had a moment in my college years that eventually kind of changed everything. And that change has persisted and lasted, and I still experience a boost from that change. Like, I still experience myself kind of at my very best and without anxiety from that thing that happened. But is there something someone could have said to me earlier that would have helped create a change? And here's the key for me is anxiety is the absence of recognition, or for me, the root of anxiety is the absence of recognition that you can handle difficult things. It's the without acknowledging your own personal strength and resources, right? So think about when I was a kid and I would see a bumblebee, I would be terrified. It looked like a big flying insect that could sting me. I couldn't believe it had like fur on it, and I would be terrified. But as I grow older, it's like, oh, I can swat that away. I'm now aware of my own ability to manage that thing so I don't have to fear it. But as a kid, I feared it. So why do I not fear it today? Because I shifted to my own resources. I could swat it away. I can run away. I can avoid it. I logically know bumblebees don't sting. I read that somewhere, right? So you can be aware of these things. So someone would have to have said to me something that would have helped me focus on my own traits, my own skills. And if somebody was sitting here right now, if somebody out there was struggling with anxiety and they were sitting in the room with me right now, I would want to have a conversation with them that helped them shift their focus to their skills and resources. And I would want to ask them to envision a more positive future. Because I think two things have to happen that would really make a massive difference for people. Number one is I want you to shift your focus to your resources, as I just explained, because that will make you more resilient. Number two, I would want you to shift your focus to your future because that would make you more hopeful. I never thought about my future. Like I can tell you, in those anxious years, I spent very little, if any time at all, thinking about my future. I didn't think about where I wanted to live, what I wanted to be. I mean, periodically, like, I'd be playing sports and I'd pretend I played for the Chicago Bears or, something like that. But I never really thought, like, what's life going to look like in the future? That just wasn't a part of my mental makeup. Like, it was just, I was so fearful. I just didn't think about it. So if I were talking to someone right now, I would ask them to envision a future that they felt was ideal to them. And the more you can envision that future, the more you get calm. The more you can envision that future, the more you'll settle your brain and your nervous system. The more you can envision that future, the more you'll just be. The answer to anxiety is just learning how to just settle and how to just be. The answer to anxiety is learning how to just kind of sit with yourself and be with yourself and literally just be. It's hard, but if you can do those two things, like literally, if you're listening to this, I want you to write down, what are the hard things that I've been through and what personality traits did I draw upon to get through those things? And if my life works out in a really wonderful, ideal way, not perfect, but a wonderful, ideal way, what would that look like? What kind of, and be really specific. What kind of car would you have? What kind of home would you want to live in? Where would you want that home to be? What hobbies would you like to have in your life? What kind of partner do you want to have if you don't already have a partner? All those things. And watch the impact it has on you. Thanks for being here. If you wouldn't mind doing me a super huge favor, I would love it if you would share this podcast with at least one person in your life that you think could benefit from hearing this message today. And also don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or anywhere else you listen to your podcast. And also follow me on all of the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can search for my name, Elliott Connie, or at Elliott Speaks. That's my handle across all platforms. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.